7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, what's going on, guys? James here with my good buddy Andrew, and our special guest today for BBR episode number 7, Christopher Brooker. Christopher is, I dare say, legend at the very least in the hair industry for sure. But if you saw, Christopher and I got to meet in person for the first time in October at Intercoiffure. We did a nice quick interview, and obviously the stories are just fantastic from his time early on in such an important era with Vidal. But Christopher, welcome to the show. So happy to have you with us today.
Well, thank you for your invitation.
And listen, this is an interesting one because I've been privy to have a lot of conversations. I even have a couple of videos of Christopher in the bar of the New York Hilton telling very, very interesting war stories from his day that maybe we'll share with you. We don't know. But one of the things we wanted Christopher to do with us today was we're starting this spring training aspect for the month of March. I know here in the States, baseball season, which obviously I guess is America's pastime. I thought, I have a lot of pastimes, but America's pastime, it's sort of a good time to reflect. You guys have gone through the initial start of 2023, and now hopefully where you are, it's starting to warm up and you're starting to think about new and exciting things that you can do with your staff and with your clients. But it's a really interesting time in terms of training overall, because there's so many facets to what it is. And one of the reasons we wanted Christopher with us is because coming out of that very buttoned up, very particular craft hairdressing component, which we all know isn't really taught the same way in beauty schools now, if at all. We just wanted to hear some of the things that you were able to take, Christopher, from in being active in the salon industry now in terms of events and going to things. When you sit back and you reflect on your days early on in Vidal as a youngin, what do you look at and what do you see as still apropos to today's training? What do you think you took from that time in the 60s and 70s and is still applicable to these young up and comers that are coming out of beauty school today?
Okay, that's quite a question. I mean, the thing is that for the people that don't know me, I've always been controversial. I don't have the same point of view as a lot of people, and I certainly agree with the direction that our industry has taken today. Okay, to address your question, that you don't have anything without designers. You don't have nothing is created without a creator. Okay, so we need very strong, good leadership. If they don't have the technical skills themselves, how is anything going to get passed on to the next generation? Is it about people's personalities, or actually what they can do with their hands? So it comes from there. I don't think that the more I learned, the more I realized how little I knew about our industry, and it's such a wide, diverse industry, and everybody is different. Every client, there is no two clients who are the same, and it's the same with the hairdressers. I don't use that word a lot because there are some very, very fine hairdressers out there, and I respect that a lot. But I am a hair cutter. Okay, and there is a difference there. And I went in the time when I was working, that was the direction that I took. I worked with the world's top international magazines. It was a really unique experience. I say that, I mean, there have other hairdressers who work with top magazines and what have you. But in the way that I approached it, it was different from anybody else that ever been done. And it was different because of Vidal. Okay. He, with his experience in the craft, was very much influenced by the father of British hairdressing, in my opinion, who was called Raymond. Okay, and Raymond was a great publicist. And Vidal learnt from that. Raymond, just so you know, in those days, in the 50s or whatever, TV was just coming in, and Raymond, was straight on that, and was a household name in the UK or what have you. He was quite a haircutter as well. He taught techniques that he taught to Vidal, and Vidal taught to me, that are now forgotten. Even at sassoons, they don't use those techniques. And that's a shame. It's a pity. I mean, I'm not living in the good old days. I'm not. But I mean, even though I don't cut much hair anymore, in part, every day, I'm still thinking about hair and hair cutting, how Vidal cut hair. How did he cut a bob, a straight bob? He worked mainly with straight hair, Vidal, in those days. But how did he do that to turn under on its own? I mean, it's one thing to cut a straight line, and that's what most people who really invest in this aspire to do. But there's more to it than that. How can you cut straight hair that goes down, that's going to bevel under and turn under on its own? So a week, 6 weeks later, the hair is still doing that. How do you cut straight hair that comes down, okay, flick up on its own? Just very simple things. Flick ups have been installed since before the Middle Ages. Flick ups, right? But like Vidal did, and the technical things that he showed me. I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, it's for me, as I say, I mean, I don't cut hair very often anymore, but I mean, it's what I dream about.
Well, let me ask you this, Christopher. So I've heard a lot of interesting things. They're talking about kind of departmentalizing again as being a thing, right? So that
departmentalizing, you mean in salon?
Colorists and cutters, which obviously has been a thing in the New York City market forever. But jack of all trades sort of took over and things like that, and now you have people that are going back to specializing. But what I've heard lately in some of the boards online and even in our group, I don't do geometric haircutting. And when I look at that and listen, as somebody that was adopted into the salon industry, a little over 10 years ago now, the first videos that I ever watched were the ABC videos that Vidal had done with the nice white background and just trying to get a better understanding of your craft. But I think it's all geometric hairdressing, right? I mean, it's, flat fabric on a round head.
I said to you, and from the beginning, every client is different. Every hairdresser is different. So, if you cut hair, then, you may identify with geometrics, but then somebody else, might identify with punk, or more free, shapes. Or some people don't. Well, around here where I am in Southern California, they don't identify with any kind of cutting at all. And as far as which I don't think is a good thing, I'll say that. I mean, I would think that, well, it's, when you're not 18 anymore, then you can't do what you did when you were a little girl, or pretend to be like that. I find that really ugly, at any level, whether the people are on TV, presenting us programs. It's a terrible thing for the clients in our industry, as far as I'm concerned.
Hey, James, just a comment on that, and Christopher, please, because you're the expert on all things hair. When that person said that to you, or you heard, I don't do geometric, what were you thinking?
Well,
what I was thinking, actually, as a Sassoon person, even though I'm not there, and this may actually surprise you, but for the geometrics, were at a particular point in time with Vidal in the 60s, and my work was to try to take that forward, if you like, not to cut, the same way, as was done then, because actually don't realize that in those days, in the 60s, up until 67, we were still setting to get those so-called geometric shapes. I do think, I think that they have a place, and when you that any kind of design done beautifully, that is really, really exciting. Not only done beautifully, but enhances the client. That is what it is all about, making people feel better, look better, be happier. That's what our job. That's what our job is. So it's not to impose some design. You asked me about the geometrics. I'll say to you about designs, not only the geometric design, really. I think why a particular thing, like, say, the geometrics, was so important, was because it coincided with what was going on in the world at that time. Now, we're in a time, and I view this time as being just as exciting, if not more exciting than that there, because then, the Russians and going to the moon, and or trying to go to the moon, the Americans got there first. But, so then you had modern hair, that would go with the idea of that. So it coincided. The design, the same, the Courage, the Ongaro, those kind of designers, they were all people that were getting into that. So the trick is to be of the moment. There are big issues in the world today. I mean, I don't know. As I say, I'm not doing that anymore, but it drives me crazy because I see these things going on in the world, and our craft is not tapping into that. I mean, for example, if I may say, I'm going to give you an example. Okay, we had this horrendous story from Iran where these police, killed this lady because her hijab or whatever it was not on straight, not happy. And so, there was this women's movement that came up, quite rightly so. And in Paris, I read, that famous actresses were cutting their hair. I saw it on the YouTube, what have you. Okay, but the thing is, they cut their hair But the thing is, that wasn't the end of the story. As far as concerned, it was. But they needed good haircutters after that to do something with their hair. And not only to do something, but to make a statement, of design, of, hey, we're with this, people shouldn't be treated in that sort of manner. So anyway, I'm getting all on giving you examples of how important it is, to be of this time, not of that time, and it's fun to, wonderful, to do that, but we're in a different time now, and we need different things. Boy, I mean, that was a big lost opportunity as far as I wanted to, although I'm not associated with any salary, anybody, anymore. I wanted to get on a plane and go to Paris and offer to cut their hair. Yeah, that was how strongly I felt about it.
You could get on a plane and come to New Jersey, and I'll give you your own.
And who's good?
Yeah.
But no, but
yeah, I mean, do you think I'm crazy when I say that? I haven't shared that with anybody, only T.
Well, I don't. I think it's that's the intensity of which you can express yourself that way, because you have this is just my opinion, you have the knowledge, the experience, the know-how to do that. And when we look at, getting back to the spring training thing, James, and what's going on in the industry, there's in my opinion, a big disconnect from the acquisition. People aren't even thinking that stuff's important. And by the way, when we mention geometrics, and Christopher's absolutely correct. It was an expression of the times that went along with what was going on. It was very au courant. But the methodology that Christopher, and tell me if I'm nuts here, you learned technique so that you could express yourself, so that you could design something. Sassoon was more of a framework than anything else. And geometrics were the outcome of that, of the underlying framework. And there were other frameworks available too. I mean, there's the whole history of the French hairdressing, which was kind of anti-Sassoon, but they had their own technique and their own design. But every hairdresser worth their salt would know what the heck they were doing, and they would.
And that's a good point. I think that's something, like I said, as we cross over into the new year, and it's interesting, both of you, I'm listening to both of you, and my gears are turning. I'm taking notes here and things that I think I can bring back into our own salon. But, the storyboard, the having something to look forward to, I feel like the last few years of the craziness that had gone on in the universe, that no one ever said, if you said, hey, listen, this is the type of hair that I do single process root touch-ups all day long, or I do long layered haircuts and that's all that I do. That doesn't mean that that's the be all end all for what you can do from a creative expression. I'm fortunate enough, I guess some would say I'm fortunate enough to have 3 kids. So some of the best, most creative projects I worked on were with Play-Doh about crazy things that they needed to do for school. And you get the empowerment of having some type of access to new information and access to just kind of the expression aspect. So I would encourage any of you on here is to go back and look at some of the great things that happened at Vidal when Christopher was there, and go back and look at, you don't have to copy what was done, but look at it and get an idea. Listen, everyone has a muse, right? Some of you have a sister that you could cut all her hair off and do something crazy to that'll let you, but go and make your own story with it. And if you look at whether it's environmentalism or things that are going on from the social aspect in the country, there's just so many things. I feel like hairdressers are so empowered by causes, and there's so many great things that a lot of things work with, whether it's the PBA Disaster Relief Fund or whether it's our friend Suzanne Shepherd Post with the domestic violence aspects. You can bring any of that in through and help and support and still keep the creativity, but make a storyboard. You don't need a magazine that's going to publish your photo, right? Everybody now, you have great cameras, we have great microphones. I mean, I have a 8-foot picture of Audrey Hepburn in the back there, where our salon, Christopher's the Beehive, so she's got her Beehive hairdo there. You can find a space anywhere. Every place has a major city close by that has some type of art installment where you could take a quick snapshot of a model in a museum before they kick you out for taking a picture. But be creative, think about those things and come up with something that the juices don't have to flow with the bread and butter clients that you deal with day in and day out. You can spend some of your own time and still work on honing yourself in the craft, or looking at the history of hair. And there's so many things that you can do. I think it's great. I'm very lucky to be with you two guys.
Can I, as I say, I don't want to upset any of your clients, and it's fine for everybody to have their own point of view. I do know what has happened, to our craft, so far as it started as booth rentals, and now it's suites and what have you, and that of our business has gone away from so-called I have to say to you, and as I say, I mean, everybody's entitled to how crazy it is, but there is something about environment which is so special. I believe it's in the interest of the client. The client comes first. That's what I believe, and when you work alone, if you just work alone in a booth or in a suite, what have you, you have nobody to bounce off. When I say bounce off, it's not just joking or what have you, but I mean, when you've worked next to somebody all day long, you can admire or otherwise their work and your own. You can compare your work to theirs, and there's a competitive process that is very good. Let me just share something with you and our listeners here, that Vidal used to have a system. We had a secret language at Sassoon's, which was around for more than 500 years. It was the poorer people in the UK and all over the world that knew this language, called Polari. And they could speak to you fully in this language, not understand as I'm speaking to you today, And one of the things that came from that, because of Vidal's East End back, was that there would be Polari words and other words coming in, and he did was to start what I call the Brahma system, and if you did a great color or card or anything, I mean, the great thing about Vidal as well is that he recognized you as an individual, and whatever your talents were, he would try to bring out those individual talents for the best. Knew that was the best for his business as well. So if you did a really great haircut, he would go to you, that's a Brahma, and I mean, it would be like cloud nine for him to say that, because he was no question about it. Vidal was an artist, and so you would work every day to try to create a Brahma. I carried on that system, when he was gone. I try to remember what he taught me, and we worked. Aspire, to do something like that. You can do that in a collective, but you can't do that on your own. I mean, yeah. To be honest with you, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Look, I know salon owners don't want to manage people. They don't really want to do that. And it's easier to rent space, to become a landlord and rent, what have you. It's a lot easier, but is that good for our craft? I'd say to you no.
I'm on your side here.
Okay,
I really am. I don't. I think the energy of solo is low level energy, and so for the solopreneur to get up every day and provide the kind of energy that's required to service a client, it's tough at best. And as far as managing people, one of my mentors said, "Hey, Andrew, you don't manage people. You can barely manage yourself, let alone manage people. Don't try. Set up systems and structures and then learn how to lead. Don't try to manage people, because management leads to control. And control leads to me and you and a big divide. And then people leave. They don't like how they're feeling. And people leave because of feelings."
Very
And
true.
so, yeah, that's the deal. And maybe yes, the industry is trending towards the solo, but boy, we haven't measured success rates with solo.
Well, but here's something interesting too that both of you can speak to. When you see Vidal back in the day and you see Sassoon Salon, everybody was buttoned up and everybody looked the part of an expert, right? And whatever the expert looks like and whatever trade it is, which is obviously a trade and craft, is what it is. But in some of that autonomy, which everyone knows how much I love the word autonomy, is the appointment is not about you. The appointment is about the client. You can have a funky space and you can say we're bohemian, you can say we're upscale Fifth Avenue. You can create the space and attract people that want to work in that space all you want. But in reality, you're the artist, but the client is the person that you're presenting to. So, you may want to look back on that and say, well, the professionalism that seemed to be missing for a while about in terms of we never say selling, right, Andrew? You're not selling retail, you're recommending product, you're educating clients, you're that type of creating the experience. I think there's something that's a little bit lost to it. If you look like you rolled out of bed, and whether you're in a suite, you rent a chair, or you work in a salon, the client's going to come in and maybe it's a new job they're going for and it's the most important haircut they got. Maybe unfortunately, and I can't even say it in the universe, maybe they're going through something even more crazy in their lifestyle, surgery, something. They're going to their divorce hearing or anything nuts. They are there to get the support of you as the creator. They're there to get the support of you as the expert, and they want to walk out looking and feeling fantastic. So, if tie-dye is is on your sign and your business cards and that's your thing, you just have to take a look at saying, what is that experience going to look like when I want to present myself as an expert? If you're wearing Uggs and, I don't know. I always look at it like the restaurant business, right, Andrew? The fine dining experience, everyone is up and you go to the local chain places and it's a whole different experience. But I don't know.
Everyone wants a Brahma every day.
Yeah.
We want that recognition. That's a human condition. We want to be noticed. Clients want to be noticed. Part of that thing is when we send them out of our place of business, they'd love to have someone compliment them. Wow, your hair looks great. That's our job to create at that level. And just talking about this morning with the client who's a masterful technician. And I said, you could probably do hair in your sleep, technically. But what makes you so great is that you really show up for the client. You are there, mind, body, spirit. And that's my opinion. And that is the big shortcoming that I'm finding in the industry. People aren't showing up. And part of showing up is having a standard. And it's pretty tough to keep personal standards. Part of what, the Sassoon business was about standard and insistence on it. I imagine, Christopher, that you insisted that people rise up to the standard. And if they couldn't, they had to go someplace else.
Andrew, I agree with most of what you've said there, okay? That in the time that we have available, as I don't want to waste your time with of that. But Vidal, because of the beginnings of where he came from, okay, he had severe disadvantages. I mean, he for the people who don't know, there's people, I can't believe it, even in London, who don't even know who Vidal Sassoon was. I mean, in our industry, I just cannot believe it. But anyway, back to Vidal, his dad left the family, when they were small. His mother had to bring them up, the two boys up on her own. So he was put into an orphanage. And when he went through all that, and then his language was very poor, so he realized he aspired on every level he could, and to try to inspire other people to do the same, not by telling them what have you, but by that. So, the points that both of you are so important. I'm speaking with you. Hair looks good. You're in the industry. I mean, if and I'm or whoever they are, and they don't fit the bill, then they lost my interest straight away, because how can they inspire other people to do it? So I hope whoever it is, where practice what you preach, you do. And that means whatever it is, are we unhealthily, is our attitude, not right for our business, etc. But just picking up on what Andrew said, I joined with 16 other people in 1960. Within 3 months, I was the only one left. Okay, it wasn't because I was so good. I mean, in truth, most of them couldn't afford to work there because, the wages. I mean, it was always a labor of love for me. I never worked there for the money, So some people, I mean, I can understand why people either say he's crazy or what happened. I am so inspired by that philosophy and what those people did. Not just Vidal, Morris, Roger, etc. Does that answer your question? I ramble on too much, excuse me.
No, you don't.
My question, great. What I will say is, and I always say this with some of our favorite people that we meet, is we'd love to have you back on again when we have some other interesting topics. I think the legacy aspect is something that's so missing from the beauty schools. And I think it's not just missing for them to have an understanding of where things started, but to give them a little bit of love and empowerment and people to look after and people to continue on to carry the torch. They're just, they go to the internet, and I know Instagram and TikTok and all the things that are happening now are really what's paramount. But without having that foundational to know how hard it is, not even just Vidal's struggles growing up as a kid, which are, that's a book in itself without even adding the hair component into it, but to look at that and who he brought on and who he taught and what he taught you because he wanted you to be the best that you could be. I think that the leadership aspect of that is, it's not that it's missing. There's so many salon owners in our group that have it. They just need to know how to harness it. They need to know how to put a little bit of, spring training, right, Andrew? Put a little Vaseline on that fastball that the umpires don't see. But I think practicing what you preach, I think, is the message I'm taking away from that. I'm so excited that Christopher has been doing so much more online. We can thank a few people we know in the background who maybe we'll have on the show one of these days really soon, Christopher. But hopefully you guys get to meet Christopher in person. The stories are just endless for the things that he's been through. But look at it from the aspect of saying, if it started there, where are we now? Even if you're in a suite and that's what your destiny is for the time being, go backwards and look at what the history of hair is. We're working feverishly on this to get that information out so we can put that lineage together for you. Just to have a better understanding. I mean, there's so many, I know you watch us on the show as the non-hairdresser. I get the fortunate opportunity to meet so many awesomely cool people like Christopher. And I come home and my wife is like, I've been doing hair for 30 years and you talk more about hair than I talk about. I said, I know, I can't believe I get to do this. But check out some of the great things that Christopher is doing now, not just the past things that he's done. And hopefully, Christopher, you'll join us again. We'll go for a war story day. Maybe we'll get the whole existing Vidal crew back together. What do you think?
James, you can find my work on the internet. I mean, I did original designs. When I say original, it's not a take on which people could, teach in schools, and they're still being done to this day, which is remarkable to me. So it's really been a pleasure for me to meet James this morning. I don't believe I had the pleasure before this morning. So thank you very much for that and for talking to you. I feel our conversation has just begun, and hopefully anything in the future, just let me know.
I love it. Thank you.
Christopher, what an honor, really.
Thank you so much.
Truly an honor to meet you.
It's lovely to meet you. It's true. I mean that.
All right, guys. So listen, we're going to have the video up. Anything that Christopher is up and coming, we're going to put in the links at the bottom of the video for you to check out. I'm going to stay here with my pals, and we're going to talk a little bit about all of you once we go off. But guys, thanks for joining us today. Christopher, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure. Andrew, always good to see your smiling face, my friend.
Bye-bye for now.
Take care, everyone.